Yeah, thank you guys so much for letting us show up today. It's really important and it's difficult for the core facilities to market ourselves. We always get, when you're on a campus, you always kind of get stuck working with graduate students all the time and professors, and it's difficult to get out and have face-to-face time with companies. But I did this work for about 10 years when I was at Georgia Tech, just focusing on companies. And I know that there will be a way for us to provide some of our services to you that will be advantageous to you. Now, the thing about the University of Arizona is I'm going to share the screen now. We have what's called our core facilities, and there are a number of, oh, that went over. Do you see the full presentation or just the PowerPoint?
We see all of it. If you go,
okay.
You have screens.
Yeah, it switched over to my other monitor. Ooh.
Yeah, if you want to screen share the other screen.
Yeah. Yes. How do I do that? You know?
You unshare and then you reshare with the other screen.
Okay. So then I could move this over to here, and then share from here.
When you click share, it should give you the options which screen to share.
There you go. Looking good.
That's it?
Yeah, you're in.
Perfect.
Woo. That was a close one. Okay. So the cores consist of, we've got a whole mess of cores. All right. I'm going to go back to the first one. I'm not sure why it didn't. Page up. Now this is weird. All right, I'm going to have to stop again for a second. For some reason, it picked. I have no idea why this is doing this. I apologize. I'm just going to go back to this other screen, okay, guys? Because it's somehow sharing a still picture of the cores, which is odd. All right, we're just going to do it this way. So embarrassing. It keeps popping up over here on this other screen.
It is a bit tricky between Zoom and Microsoft wanting to do the presentation.
Well, do you guys mind if we just do this small version?
No, I think it's
fine.
Still loading up.
Okay, so all right, so the core facilities, we have a number of cores here. We really spread like the gamut of different disciplines. A lot of bio and medical centric cores, and some fabrication, and then even some when I say fabrication, I mean like mechanical type fabrication, and then what I do is the semiconductor type fabrication. So we have a lot of mass spec, we have a lot of electron microscopy, and Tony's going to talk about the electron microscopy. So I'm going to leave that up to him and not steal his thunder. But we have a whole gamut of different types of things that you guys can interact with, and each facility has its own core manager, and so we are more than happy to work with you to find out if there's some way that we can meet some need of yours. So the best thing, and I'm not going to go through all of the cores because I don't know enough about them, and there's just a lot of information. So the best thing for you to understand is that if you go to this first slide, which is the research gateway, you'll be able to search all the core facilities. You'll be able to search all of the different types of equipment, and every piece of equipment that we have is available for use on a per hour basis, okay? You can come in and use it yourself. You can get trained, or, well, for some of them, or you can have staff operate it for you, okay? And so we use this service, it's really simple, called iLab. And through iLab, you can access one of these cores, access the equipment, request a service, get the service done, and pay for it via a credit card, or set up you could set up a project if you wanted to do so, if it was going to be a long-term thing. And through iLab, we can track everything. That you can make your requests, you can track the work, and you can get the work back and get charged. So, so for me, I want to just focus on, because I don't know enough about the other stuff. I'm going to focus on what I provide, and maybe there are a couple of you who could use it. But what I manage is the clean room, and the clean room is traditionally focused on semiconductor fabrication, MEMS fabrication, some characterization. But mostly it's where you can make some type of a device. And some of these devices can be used for optoelectronics. They can be used for waveguides. They can be used for making MEMS devices that can be inserted into the body, for a pressure transducers, for instance, that can, monitor blood pressure. I know at one point I was working with a company who was specifically making a little pressure transducer that they would insert into the aortic aneurysm after it's had its stent put in, and it would monitor that blood pressure. And if the way it would monitor it, and then it would send the signal out to RF signal, right? So you don't have to take like this was back in the day, actually, when you had to take an x-ray and measure the size of the aneurysm, see if there's any trouble. This would just radio out the pressure, and it could tell you if it was going to start to fail. So there are ways of integrating the bio world with this traditional semiconductor processing fabrication type of world. And so at the Nanotechnology Fabrication Center here, it's about a 10,000 square foot of clean room space and about another 30,000 square feet of what we call chase space. And within the facility, we have all your traditional semiconductor fabrication techniques for depositing thin films, oxide, nitride, evaporating just about any metal we can get a starting sample with, gold, silver, copper, platinum, palladium, oxides, nickel, cobalt. If we can find a target, or if we can find a source material, we can evaporate it onto some surface. And so this is of value. Like if someone wants to passivate a surface that may be electronically active or electrically active, or it may run the risk of oxidation, you'll passivate it so that it doesn't react with the atmosphere or any other environment that it may be put in. So we can deposit all kinds of materials with different techniques: evaporation, sputtering, thermal evaporation. Then if you deposit the material, you might want to etch it off, right? So we can do chemical plasma etching. And this is where you put that same sample in their low pressure and under power and pressure and chemistry conditions, you can etch patterns into the surface. Okay. And then there's lithography. Let's say you wanted to pattern a surface with some, with something. You do that through lithography, where you would spin on a photo definable material. You expose the material with UV light and with, through a mask, and the areas that are exposed will either, develop away or not. And you can transfer a pattern basically down to your substrate. And then you can do stuff with that. That's where you can either grow materials in the exposed areas or etch away materials. And then with metrology, you might want to look at the surface of something, measure the resistance, with the 4-point probe. You can measure the profile either with a stylus profilometer or an optical profilometer. And this ellipsometer is a new tool we just bought. This is for measuring film thicknesses, the index of refraction, the extinction coefficient. You can measure all kinds of cool values or intrinsic properties of films using this tool. So it's has a lot of value with our optical science researchers here. And then for those any biocentric interest, if you do want to take a material and implant it perhaps in a biological situation, you would use this Parallel encoder. And so this is brand new. It's coming in this month. Actually, it might even be shipped in today. But this will coat your whatever device you have with a material called Parallel C, and this makes it more biocompatible, so that when something is inserted into a body, for instance, the body doesn't fight it off. It doesn't think of it as an invader, and it will let it sit in there. And so then beyond that, I want to let Tony now talk about some of the microscopy capabilities that we have. We have so much here, and I wish I could have got more people involved, but Tony's been here a lot longer than I have, and he can even possibly give a few words about some of the other cores. But Tony, would you like to take it away now?
Tony, it looks like you're on mute.
As I was coughing, that's better. Okay. Okay, so of the 48 cores, there were about 14 which are actually image related. They're not all obvious, like functional genomics and mass spec, which Greg has already mentioned. But my core, I will now go to share screen. There we go. Okay. Go to play full start. Okay.
Perfect.
So my core it consists of basically biological electron microscopy, but we also do stuff for physical sciences as well. There is a 200 kV microscope, actually specifically for physical sciences. But we find that my 120 kV microscope actually gives better contrast for material which isn't contrasting so well. So this introductory slide gives you some idea of the kind of biological things which we do. So looking at the top row, the first 4 columns, on the immediate left is a project we did looking at a transgenic mosquitoes, and mosquitoes, if they have a blood meal, their lining of the gut breaks down, so it has to have a mechanism for actually rebuilding that. And this is what we studied with the electron microscope to actually see what was involved. The second on the top row is a null mutant for transforming growth factor beta 1, which is I did in my lab, and that just illustrates the kind of changes were actually in the myelin sheath and sheathing prolonging motor nerves. The next one is a cross section of a parasitic worm. The next one across is from a study which we did looking at stroke, and this shows the boundary between the normal brain tissue and the tissue affected by stroke. Looking at the bottom row is a transgenic Drosophila, which is a model. It's basically a model for learning and memory. In insects, the learning and memory part of the brain actually corresponds to the hippocampus in humans. The second one along is also from my lab. That's actually from a study I did looking at neurofilaments, a breakdown of neurofilaments, and how they actually will transform from a soluble alpha form to an insoluble beta form. So that's a model for Alzheimer's disease. The next one across is from physical sciences. This is actually from the chemistry group, and they're looking at nanoelectronics. And basically what they do, they string a whole row of atoms together and create a dipole. It's a charge at one end. The next one is skeletal muscle. We do quite a bit of that. The composite I'll talk about again in a minute when we go on to the next through this. So this is muscle. One of the really cool things about using electrons is not only the fact that you can get really good resolution, considerably better than the light microscope. You can actually get get a resolution, a diffraction resolution of less than 1 angstrom unit. So you can look at individual atoms. So the other cool thing is the big depth of focus you get with electrons. And this is a section of muscle. And a lot of the structures which you see there are in actually different planes within that section. Large depth of focus means that everything within that plane of that section is in perfect focus. Now this can be applied to, if we're looking at single particle analysis, macromolecular proteins, it means we can actually tilt those and look at them from different angles and get an overall 3D reconstruction of the entire molecule. This is called tomography. Now a little bit about commercial projects which I've been doing. Recently, which is a year ago now, there's an interest in the natural spice, which is called curcumin. And there's a deal of evidence now which actually demonstrates that in fact it does help alleviate some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. It also helps with certain tumors, adenocarcinoma. But why we're interested in Alzheimer's disease. Now you can either take the curcumin as a powder, but the problem is you have to ingest so much for it to cross the blood-brain barrier, and it actually causes more damage to the gut than it actually helps poo. So this was working with a company called Augustus Biotarget, which is located in Max Planck, Germany, and they produce small vesicle structures which they can target to particular areas of the brain or the body. So what they did, they added curcumin to their biospheres, and that was then shipped to Charles River Laboratories, and they injected into rats, and then they took out the brains and they gave the brains to me. And we actually did show that it does cross the blood-brain barrier. You can't really see on this, the image to the left of that, but you may be able to see some little black dots in there. This is actually the blood-brain barrier, and we did show that not only with a curcumin, which I labeled with immunogold, not only did it cross the blood-brain barrier, but it actually reached the target cell, which are called microglia. And it's the microglia which actually mop up the insoluble aggregates which are producing Alzheimer's disease. The second one, which is where we're in the process of writing up now, there's a disease of citrus which particularly affects a grapefruit, which is called citrus greening. And the cure for that was actually produced by a company up in the research laboratory is actually located in Phoenix, but the manufacturing facility is elsewhere. I forget where. And so we did electron microscopy with that, and we did show that there is a definite difference. Now, citrus greening is caused by an insect vector which actually injects a bacteria into the leaf. And so on the image to the left, you can actually see bacteria, lots of bacteria. There's another image somewhere that's probably further over, that's hidden by all your faces over there, but never mind. I'm not going to change things because I'll probably screw it up. But the treated end, there were no bacteria. Now we have a proposed thing which is similar, and it's also in conjunction with bioflora. And this is, there's a similar bacteria invasion which affects grapes. And this is called Pierce disease. And we're in the process of applying for a grant actually to cover that, which will cover the not just the electron microscopy, covers everything, which will be a $500,000 grant, which will cover 2 years. The next thing is a proposed project which is involve the U of A and again bioflora. Now, bioflora also have a carrier molecule which not only facilitates entry of different drugs into the cell, but also enhances the effect of the drugs. We've been doing a study in conjunction with the College of Pharmacy, actually looking at the coronavirus. And the image to the left actually shows you on the insert the coronavirus, and scattering around the nucleus, which you see immediately below that, you see lots and lots of virus particles. Now this was a non-infective form of coronavirus which we used. Which is why they actually hadn't entered into the nucleus. Another thing which we've done, not only can you actually produce images with electron microscope, but you can also produce diffraction images. And we did electron diffraction on the talcum powder. And we were looking for asbestos fibers in the talcum powder. So we did electron diffraction and we showed there were actually asbestos fibers. I'm not going to say any more about that because there's all kinds of legal issues involved with this. Okay, finally, I did show an image on the first slide which illustrated correlative light and the electron microscopy immunolabel. And this involved a moth, a manduka, and the olfactory lobes. And we were interested in actually seeing how the connections between the olfactory input is actually transmitted to the brain. So on the top left, on the bottom left, you actually see the straight IF image, and you see I injected what are called projection neurons with a dye, Texas red. Immediately above that is a confocal image, which is the injected olfactory lobes plus a marker actually against synapses, nerve synapses, the higher thing at the bottom. And then at the bottom right, you actually see there's actually an image of a projection neuron, and the black dots in there are an anti-Texas red, gold-labeled anti-Texas red antibody, and you see that antibody is located within the neurons. You can also see the resolution's not great, but down at the bottom you can actually see the synaptic vesicles within that axon. So this will show that actually the projection neurons are actually presynaptic. I'm not going to go into why that's important, but that's it. Okay, so that's the kind of commercial things which we've been doing. we perform, let's get rid of this screen, stop share. Okay, there we go. We perform biological, a full service biological facility with the entire campus. We're the only biological facility, electron microscopy, the transmission electron microscopy on the entire campus. So if you need to do any transmission electron microscopy, this is it.